And we're live.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronin Nazarin Talks. This is the special one. We're joined with two special guests, Chris Mohan from Chris Mohan and SJS from SJSArts.
Hello.
Yeah.
And today we're doing a director deathmatch, Duel at noon or 6 minutes past June. 6 minutes past noon.
June.
Even, yes.
Wow.
So I'll hand over to my co-host Nazarinprod, as it was his idea and he's in control of the matchups.
Yeah, but I want to know what's 6 minutes past June. What does that
That's
actually
6
mean?
minutes after you finished June.
No, I think it
Instead
should be
of
more
noon.
Existential. I want a film based on this. I want a spaghetti western.
I was going to say, it's a great name for a film.
I know.
6 minutes past June.
Maybe
Yeah, I know.
Jodorowsky can actually shoot it because he didn't get to shoot June.
Yeah. So the idea is it's a death match where don't take it too serious. It's kind of like a variation what we did with the different distributors of Blu-rays and DVDs. It's the idea of this is so we're just having a bunch of directors. We're splitting them between art house and entertainment. Now, art house basically means directors who are well known for making films that might not be the most commercial, and sometimes they have like massive gaps between the films and things like that, and they make difficult films. Now we went. Then there's the entertainment, which are directors who are still artistic directors, so it's not Rennie Harlan or anything, just in case. But they actually have an idea of the commerciality of the project too, at times, and basically I had to cut it down. So that's coming double the amount for each side quite easily, but I had to kind of cut it down to basically there's like 16 directors. I had to cut it down to 16. I could have easily gone 32, but I thought this was going for way too long. And if it's fun, there's plenty of directors we can go to after this one another time quite easily. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the art house and the entertainment, and we're going to face them off against each other pretty soon. So we're going to make it as brutal as possible for everybody.
Yeah, and I should say we're not actually going to put any directors to death. So,
well that was an agreement. Most of them are dead anyway. Right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
We're not going to dig them up and then kill them again. So.
I mean, sometimes their work does that for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, there's only 2 people in this list that are still breathing. We can't kill them, they're dead. Nature has done it for us.
Maybe they're reincarnated as a slug.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the first death match is between 2 that are still alive. That's it.
Somebody has to go.
Yeah. So the first one is David Lynch versus Werner Herzog as part of the Art House collection. So I'll let Ronin start because that's the cruel thing to do.
Okay. Now, when you actually think about David Lynch, he hasn't made that many films. And obviously, when you think of Herzog, he has made a load of films. He's almost had 2 careers. And I've seen the bulk of his films, even though I do need to rewatch a bunch of his films. Obviously, I've seen all of David Lynch's films, and with the exception of Inland Empire, I've seen them multiple times. Are we having a discussion then, voting, or are we voting when it's our turn? We're having a discussion first, and then
we'll discuss it. That's what we did last time. We just talked about pros and cons of each director, and then we decide which one is the better director, and then we alienate half the fan base.
Yeah. I mean, if you go on batting average, if you take away the amount of films they've done, I think both their batting averages are pretty high of what I've seen. I haven't seen quote unquote a bad film from Herzog, even though I've still to see his one with Nicolas Cage.
What the
Bad Lieutenant? Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome! That's insane.
Yeah,
it's really that's one of his better more recent ones.
Yeah. And obviously for me, David Lynch hasn't made a clunker either. I mean, you can argue about Dune, but I mean, you still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Obviously, some people in here are bigger fans of Dune than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think David Lynch would be horrified how many times I've seen that film.
Yeah. But then you go, well, how many of each director's films are masterpieces? How many are iconic? I mean, you could argue perhaps they have as many masterpieces as each other, despite Herzog having a larger amount of films. Yeah, this one is actually harder than you might think for me, but I'll let other people have a go.
I'll go for SJS now. I'll go clockwise or all around.
So this is the easiest battle for me, of course, because David Lynch is by far my favorite director. And to be honest, if we put David Lynch against all the other directors put together, I would still go with David Lynch. So that's how much I love him. But I do still really appreciate Herzog's filmography as well. But he's one of those directors that I appreciate more than I kind of have a personal connection with him. But I've seen all the films in the BFI set that I have back there, and I've seen some other films like Bad Lieutenant, and I really like the kind of versatility in Herzog films. There's the versatility that he made documentaries and fiction films, and then there's also versatility like inside those genres of filmmaking. So he made many different types of documentaries and many different types of fiction films. So that's something that I really appreciate, but I haven't seen many of his kind of more recent films, so I don't know how good he is now that he's older, but he made so many great films in the 70s and in the 20th century in general, and some good films in more recent years that I've seen also. But I'm gonna go with David Lynch, but Herzog is a great one too.
Yeah, but who's the better actor?
David Lynch.
Oh, that's controversial.
That is controversial.
That's controversial.
Yeah, that's.
I might have to go with Herzog in the acting front.
Yeah, that's pure fanboyism. Let's face it. We should point out that unlike the rest of us, SJS actually has the themed background for the Deathmatch. We were lazy. No one else did this apart from him. He's the one who actually prepared, and so I appreciate that, SJS. That looks nice. I was going to mention it earlier on, but I forgot. It was also point he put his name down for a actual Deathmatch with Dalton Homecoming Queen. For all you fans of Swayze.
Yes.
Okay. And Twin Peaks. The Homecoming Queen is Laura Palmer. So.
Yes, I know, but...
Okay, Chris, how about you?
So, I'll just be the person to say, how can David Lynch win if you don't understand what the fuck any of his films are about? Excuse me for swearing so early in the afternoon.
Yeah, fuck you.
Having said that, I think Lynch is sort of, will it be considered a transcendent director, and Herzog is not quite, even though he probably should be, given that his filmography spans so many more themes, so many more countries, so many more kind of topics, that kind of stuff. But if I'm to compare the two in terms of great directors, and we're talking about directors in terms of auteurism or in terms of how you tell a story or having an identity, that kind of thing, even though I can't claim to say that I completely get everything that happens in a Lynch film, which I don't think is really the point. There's no doubt that each of his films, maybe due to the fact that there are less of them, is more of an event. You know, it's a major thing. I would say, even though, you know, Ronin was talking about having seen Lynch's films multiple times, it's a very conscious decision to go, right, I'm in the mood for a David Lynch film here. We're going to stick it in the player, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to try and pull this apart and see what new I can get out of it. Whereas I don't think I'm doing quite the same thing for Herzog. I don't think it's quite on that level. It's like, oh, I have another one of his oeuvre of titles to watch. Let's make my way through it and see what we think. And it's always an interesting watch. It's always a very rewarding watch, but I don't think I'm necessarily putting it apart. And there is that thing of, is it interesting because it is not as convoluted or designed as Lynch films? That is the question.
Yeah, because both of them, I suppose, it's actually quite an interesting pairing in the sense that both of them are fairly unpredictable with their films. You don't exactly know where their films are going to go, which is quite rare. And you could actually make the argument that Herzog's still bizarrely underrated.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn now.
Yes.
Yeah, well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go. The next time it'll be like SJS starts, then we'll just keep on going round clockwise who starts, so it'll be simpler. So everyone gets the chance to be the first, and we don't pick on running all the time. So with me, like, there's a lot of Lynch I adore. Obviously, I mean, Lost Highway, I think it's gorgeous. The Twin Peaks stuff, Blue Velvet. But there's a lots of Herzog I adore as well. Like, I actually worked all these out so that I had no easy choices, like, ever, in any category. I think there's one category of an easy choice, but the rest of it I don't. And because Herzog 70s stuff is easily on par with anything Lynch did. I mean, the Kinski, the one with the guy who was in the mental asylum, there was Bruno, and in Heart of Glass is unique. Not even David Lynch is going as unique as Heart of Glass, but we hypnotized all the actors. No one's going that stuff. And if you even look at a remake of Nosferatu, it's uniquely Herzog. And some of the documentaries, he goes to Antarctica. He does a spoken word film with Brad Dourif, just talking about as if he's an alien. He does so many other stuff that is almost on par with Lynch for strange. So I mean, I don't think you can see Lynch is more strange than Herzog. I think they've both got their own obsessions, are just different. I mean, like, Lynch is much more metaphorical, but it's not metaphorical you ever kind of figure out. It's more fantastical, but it always relates to the real world. Well, Herzog tends to be much more focused on the real and what's below his feet, and less of an interpretation. But it's a very different. They've both got a kind of unique thing where they're kind of outsiders, but they're quite happy to just do their own thing. So they're both kind of like, they're not. I don't think they're oddballs. I think they're just quite comfortable in skin of who they are as filmmakers, really. So that's my take on it.
Plus, David Lynch hasn't been shot during an interview and carried on.
Yeah, I know that's yeah. SGS, try and answer that one. I think I'm too close to my microphone.
It was a bit intimidating, was it?
No, I was talking. I was thinking, I'm hearing my breathing as I'm talking. This is not good. So I just put it up really quick, and somebody was like, "I think I'm too close. I can hear me breathing."
As long as it's not somebody else breathing.
Yeah. No. I recorded that earlier on and just put it below the microphone. You know, the secret cameos. So it's time to vote, I think. So
Well, we go in the order of who started then.
No, it should go the other way around.
So
like,
whoever
talks, yeah, and whoever talks last has to vote first.
Okay, you're first.
Yeah. So I'm going for Herzog.
I'm going to go for Lynch.
Lynch.
I'm going to bite my thumbs off and go with Lynch.
Okay. Lynch wins.
One down.
Yeah. I kind of thought that was going to happen, but I actually thought that genuinely, I think Herzog has something. I think the thing over the top for me was Herzog made Heart of Glass and David Lynch didn't. And I like Heart of Glass more than like any Lynch film. And it's that simple.
It's an argument.
It's an argument. It's not very objective, but it's an argument.
I know, but whoever made them film that mattered most to you, and I think there's certain Herzog films that matter more to me than Lynch films that I have a more emotional connection to. Because I saw a lot of Herzog films when I was a teenager and a young cineast, sort of like the way SJS saw David Lynch films. I saw Herzog films, so there's an emotional connection there that I've got to Herzog.
I hope they got Bill Duke's not in this battle.
What?
By that criteria, I gotta hope Bill Duke's not in this battle.
Yeah. And so
Or
that's
Carl
the
Franklin.
we're going to
Yeah.
entertainment. So I'm going to do these in random order, so you can't think, oh, this person's going against this later on. So we're going to Fritz Lang versus Alfred Hitchcock in entertainment.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna start, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is pretty simple battle for me. I think both are obviously great directors, but I think I just like Hitchcock films more. I enjoy them more, so it only comes down to enjoyment basically. But I think that Hitchcock isn't like objectively a better director than Fritz Lang or anything like that. But I just like Hitchcock films more, and I have rewatched them more, and I don't get in the mood for Fritz Lang films that often, even though I really like them. I watched the Die Nibelungen finally in the Christmas break, and again, it was a masterpiece, but Hitchcock made films like Vertigo and Rear Window that I could watch once a year. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Hitchcock, but again, I think they are both amazing masters, and I don't think Hitchcock is better than Fritz Lang, but he just connects with me more. So
Okay. This is another one we could do. Who's the better actor for? Which Fritz Lang would obviously win in this case.
Yes.
This is quite tough for me. I think Hitchcock is more consistently great than Lang. But Lang, for me, has the higher highs in a lot of ways, the much more interesting films. I would say Hitchcock, in some ways, is a little one note in some of what he tries to do and sets out to do. But I do love his films. Holy shit. I know it's sort of become fashionable not to say that you like Hitchcock as much anymore. You know, in the intervening kind of 30 years, people have went off, oh, Hitchcock, yeah, that old hack. But the man was very important. I don't think the cinema industry would be what it is today if it isn't for how Hitchcock grabbed the audience. But man, Metropolis and him, and even Woman in the Window, even some of this later stuff, like it's great. I think somebody brought that up the other day, and I was like, I have to rewatch that again. I really enjoy that. This is a tough one. This is a very tough one.
Decision yet.
I know that's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm just trying to bounce it back and forward in my head.
Yeah.
Let's say, but there's my general thoughts and my general ideas put out there.
Yeah. With me, I've always liked Hitchcock, but I've never loved Hitchcock. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain films of Hitchcock, like Shadow of Doubt and Vertigo, that I really adore. But I understand why Hitchcock is less important now because he was so overpraised in the 80s and 90s. It's like people are sick of it. It's like there are other directors than Hitchcock. Come on, there's other people like Saget Ray or somebody who didn't get the same appreciation is now getting it. So I get why he's getting less attention now because I think it just balances out. But Fritz Lang, he basically invented a lot of the thriller formulas that Hitchcock took. Because in the 20s, he was the one doing the Dr. Mabuse film, The Spider. He invented the language of science fiction films in lots of ways with Metropolis. And if you look at Woman on the Moon, that was I used a lot of research about moon things that every science fiction film since then has been influenced by. And then when his career ran out of steam in Germany because he was on the run from the Nazis, he came over to America, and even though he was a bit of a nutcase, he made these wonderfully short, brutal, depressing films. That some of the films you look at and you go, how was this made by a major studio? Because it's so depressing and so utterly without any redemption. That's why we never stayed in any studio, because I think films became so dark that they couldn't only take so much of them. So Hitchcock took a lot of what Lang did, I think, and made it much more palatable for the mainstream. Like he was the next stage of evolution of the thriller format. That Lang created some stuff, then Hitchcock took that and created other things and evolved it even further. Then other directors took it from Hitchcock. So that's why I could put them together, because there are two different stages of the same kind of thing, but they've different attitudes, really. Like one's a depressive German, and one's a much more likable but with a dark sense of humor, entertainment guy who had some dark things in his psyche that come out in strange ways. So that's my take on both of them. So I'll pass it over to Ronan.
No, I think everybody knows that I'm probably one of the biggest Hitchcock bashers. I just don't get Hitchcock at all. But I will say, every Hitchcock film I have seen is a good film. I haven't seen a bad Hitchcock film. So, again, it is a little bit of he's so overrated in my opinion. And again, I get why people like him. I get why filmmakers like him. But for me, he is a good director, not a great director. Because maybe I'm a little bit biased because he didn't really write anything he did, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, he would have had ideas on the script, but he never really wrote anything. It got to the stage that Hitchcock scripts were written for him. And to me, that doesn't strike of an auteur or a great filmmaker. But again, I will say, as much as I'm not a huge fan of his work, I do have some of his films and they're all good. But to me, I don't see the greatness in Hitchcock. I don't know, I'm in the minority. As far as Fritz Lang, a bit like SJS, I don't necessarily watch his films over and over and over again that much. But as Chris said, when you look at his batting average, it's very high. In his highs, he does have masterpieces, in my opinion. And in my opinion, which is also not fact, Hitchcock doesn't. But again, going back to Hitchcock, it's probably about that overratedness. For example, Psycho. But for me, Clouseau's Le Diabolique, which Hitchcock wanted to make, is way better. Peeping Tom, same year, way better. Eyes Out of Face with Franju, way better. It's not even close. But back to Lang, again, he's a director who perhaps had two careers and had one excellent career and one kind of patchy, but his highs in America were really high, like the Big Heat. So that's where I stand. Everybody kind of knows where I stand in Hitchcock, but I'm not calling Hitchcock a bad director because he's not a bad director. I enjoy all of his films, but I just don't see the masterpieces in his work that everybody else does, and Lang does have masterpieces.
Yeah, I should say that Hitchcock actually developed scripts with his writers. It wasn't like they brought it to him. He's like, I want to do this, and he started working with writers to make them. So he didn't take credit, but he actually was developing the scripts with them a lot of the time.
Yeah, he's still not great.
Okay, well, you get to vote first. You get to vote first.
This is Fritz Lang. I mean, not by like a gigantic margin, but it's still Fritz Lang by a margin.
Yeah, for me, it's Fritz Lang as well, to be honest. It's Chris now.
I gotta go Fritz Lang as well. Although I will say, not like Fritz Lang wrote a lot of his stuff either, but anyway, I'll go Fritz Lang just because of the if I think about films that I love more and if I rank both the films together, there's more Lang films at the top for me.
So SJS.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Hitchcock, but I don't mind that it's Lang because I still really like his films. And by the way, one thing that I forgot to mention was that I actually haven't seen many of his kind of later work, so I haven't seen The Big Heat or Woman in the Window, or is it Scarlet Street, that one? I need to watch those. So yeah, I've been meaning to watch them for years, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
You need to watch more movies, SGS. This is scandalous.
What you doing spending your time?
All right. I can't believe you said that to him, the man who obsessively watches about 5 movies a day.
Honestly, I look at what you log and watch SGS, and I just go, how in the world are you getting through that many films? Oh, that's so good.
But I've only watched like 81 films this year, so is it even one a day in average? So, but I used to watch way more. So
that's nearly exactly the same number as me. So there we go, we're the same.
Yeah. Okay, we're now going to France now. Yep, for the art house directors. So we're going Jean-Luc Godard versus Robert Bresson. And Chris
me against all of you. Yeah.
No, Chris has to start.
Oh,
Because-
man. The funny thing about this is I'm not the biggest stan for either one of these two people, I have to say. You could literally pick every other French director that's ever lived and put them up against either one of these two, and they probably would have won. Give me a Truffaut, give me a Becker, give me a Demi, give me anything. Haven't said that.
Yes.
Goddard versus Bresson. Okay, it's actually not that difficult for me. As a bit like Hitchcock as well, this revisionist history. I think Goddard's films and filmmaking view has fallen off a cliff. Take away the impact that he had, and none of us were necessarily around at the time for that to happen, and the impact, the thing that he had. I don't think his films are that great, and in fact, I think a lot of them become very preachy. I know Bresson is preachy, but Bresson does it in a very, very different way to Goddard. There's less monologue and very on the nose kind of, oh, these are my political leanings as you go through a lot of his films. What was it? I watched one of his the other day. Oh, I watched The Married Woman the other day, and the start and the end are great, and in the middle we just have preachiness the whole way through, and I was like, oh my God, skip this part. Bresson, I really can understand why people love Bresson, but I find his films a bit cold. I find it a bit heartless at times, even though the subject matter of his films is anything but. Those themes, etc., all really connect me, but I always find that his films are kind of like a bit shot from a distance, and almost like a reaction to Goddard and saying, "Look, I'm not going to be preachy about this. I'm gonna let you make up your own mind." So, there's my thoughts.
Yeah. I had no idea what your thoughts on either of those directors were, so I was like, "Well, this is the one I have no clue what he's going to say."
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, it's my turn. Well, I actually like Goddard better than a lot of people think I do, because I watched quite a lot of them. But 10 years ago, I watched a lot of their films. Then I do like him. I actually like him because he is preachy about some of the stuff he's obsessed by, and he does have a point of view. And there's some stuff that made in the USA and the Weekend and things like that I really like. And there's a lot of films I really like. I just like the fact he makes the films that he wants to make. And it's like, if you don't like the films, you don't like the films. I don't care. I'm going to make my films. On the other hand, Bresson is one of my favorite directors. He's one of my top directors of all time. And I just find his films beautiful. I just find them to be wonderful, soulful. I don't find them cold at all. I find them pretty devastating. Most of the time, I just like, especially 60s and 70s films. Actually, some of his more famous films from like the Devil Country Priest, I'm not as big on as some people are. I like the 60s and 70s, and the ones that are maybe less thought of, like Four Nights of a Dreamer or Femme Deuce and things like that. I like them a lot more than like some of his more famous ones. So there is that. But I think it's actually closer than you'd expect from me, even though I adore Bresson, but I also have a lot of respect for Godard, even though at times he can be a prick. He's still got talent, he's still doing his things, he's still making his films, and they're about films, well, dissecting films and dissecting what we want from films, dissecting what kind of politics into films in a way that's different from everyone else. Because most people talk about politics in films, they're not really talking about politics, they're talking about their ideology, and it's not actually examining the political side of it at all. And Godard does. So that's why I think he's important. So I'll pass it on to Ronin now.
Well, I'll look at it from the angle of a simpleton.
Well done.
Godard and Bresson, when you just say their names, they can seem intimidating. And this isn't really a fair fight for me because I just haven't seen enough Godard. I've got the box set. Also, I've seen Alphaville and Weekend, but they were a long time ago. So it's not really fair for me to speak on Godard. But he is one of those guys that I've always kind of been intimidated by due to my small brain. Bresson was somebody, again, that I watched a long time ago. And once you get into the rhythm, I think Bresson can be a little bit unapproachable. And again, in my mind, Godard is a bit unapproachable as well. But I think once you get into the rhythm of Bresson, it is a world you want to spend time with. And again, because Bresson doesn't mess about, there's no 2 3/4 hour films from Bresson. He gets to the point, and I think that's why I love the Dardennes as well, who are obviously a huge influenced by Bresson. There's a poetry about his films, and rewatching some of them again recently, like Lancelot de Lac, which managed to get in Blu-ray, which is just amazing. I think once you get into the rhythm of Bresson, his films are endlessly rewatchable, despite, again, that mental image of, oh, it's Bresson, this is going to give me a headache, but they don't really. But for me, it's not really a fair fight because I just haven't seen enough Godard to really comment on Godard.
Okay, now to SJS.
Okay, so I'm gonna rant a bit here. But both of these directors are on my top 10, and they are actually back to back. If you look at my letterbox list, Bresson is 9th place and Godard is 10th place, but they could be the other way around too. And both of these directors were people who I struggled to get into at first, but then when I did get into them very, very hard, and now I just love everything that they do, basically. But the thing about Godard is that I think many people don't like him because there's this kind of, I feel like, anti-intellectualism in the film community. Oh, it's so pretentious, it's so political, look at the structure, it's different. Like, those are good things, and all art is political. Look at the Spielberg films, and that's the most pro-America propaganda that you can ever find, and that's as political as any Godard film. And I think one thing about Godard, again, if we go back to the anti-intellectualism, is that you kind of appreciate his films more if you are also into other art forms and if you are into politics and philosophy in general, because there are so many references to many things. Like, I just watched one Godard film called The Joy of Learning, and there are references to Marx and Mao and Sigmund Freud. So I think you kind of get more out of those films if you know the references, at least a bit. I mean, you don't have to have read Marx's Das Kapital to get Godard films, but you should at least know something about those references to get more into Godard. And I think, again, Godard, his best era was the 60s, the French New Wave era from like 1960 to the late 60s. Again, I have some weird favorite Godard films that not many people talk about, like La Chinois and also Hail Mary. But I think Godard films, even though they are definitely the products of their time, they still are relevant in many ways, still to this day, when they criticize the stupidity and brutality of the upper class, and they criticize the dehumanizing effect of the consumerist culture and stuff like that. Those are still very relevant themes. So I really love Godard. But then also Bresson, when I watched Pickpocket, which was my first Bresson film, I kind of hated it. But then after I watched L'Argent and Mouchette, I got into him a bit more. And then I think Au Hasard Balthazar was the one that pulled me in. And now I also like the other films that I just mentioned more when I rewatched them. But I like the Bresson style, or the lack of the style. And I like how he focuses on small details and what he says about human cruelty and human nature. It really connects with me in a very deep level, and I think there's also lots of emotion, unlike Chris said, like watch film like Mouchette, for example, and that's one of the most emotional films I've ever seen. But of course, some of the films are quite cold as well. But again, I love both directors pretty much equally, but I don't know actually who I'm gonna go with today, but we'll see.
Okay, well, it's you have the first choice actually, because it's other way around.
Take as long as you need.
No, well, I'm gonna go with Godard because I know that probably most of you are gonna go with Bresson. So.
Chicken delivered at the end.
Yeah, I'm Bresson, but again, it's due to ignorance of Godard.
Well, I'm Bresson as well, just because I adore Bresson. But I have to say, I have somewhat less on one of the things that's coming up. We have two directors who are pretty much almost the same for me. So I made sure I put them together just to torture myself a little bit more. So You're not the only one who's got this, SJS. I did it to myself too. Okay, Chris.
I'm gonna go Bresson as well. I should say it's not that I hate their films; they're just not in the elevated levels of some other directors for them. But Bresson's films are, to me, much more beautiful than Goddard's.
Okay, so that's Bresson. I should say, even the losers of these things, they were still talking up pretty good. So it's we're
there's no bad directors here.
yeah. So now we're going back to entertainment, and we're going with Akira Kurosawa versus Orson Welles.
Balls. It's me to go first.
No, it's not. It's me.
You
go last this time. You can have a chance to think about it.
That's right. I had a heart attack last time. That's right. Remember.
Yes, it's my turn this time to torture. Okay, right. Akira Kurosawa was one of the directors who initially I wasn't so big on until the last 4 or 5 years, because you were supposed to love him. You know, that thing is where you said you gotta love this guy. He's amazing. It's like I'll love who I want to love in this filmmakers. I'm not going to letting you tell me who you love. And then later on, I said this film guy is really good. it's that thing of like grudgingly. The first one I saw I really liked was Throne of Blood. I've still adore Throne of Blood, and I really like Gran and Kagemusha, some of his later ones. I adore Redbeard, and I adore the Seven Samurai. There's a lot of stuff there I adore. There are 1 or 2 films I've seen that I don't like Hidden Fortress, that I just think it's overrated. I just don't get that one. But he's one of the directors who, in this list, is one I've probably seen less of, because there's some 50s ones that are non-samurai that I've not seen. But Sanjuro and Jimbo and stuff like that I've seen, but it's just like there's certain other ones I've not seen. So he's one director here I think I'm probably the weakest on, for I haven't seen all the films. Orson Welles, on the other hand, I've seen most of his films and even obscure stuff, and I've been an Orson Welles fan since the start. You know, you have the thing about Citizen Kane is everyone adores Citizen Kane, and then you see it and it's like, this is the best film of all time. And then you realise, actually, it is really good, but you have to hit a certain age before you really can appreciate it as well, as think is it, because it's about aging. And there's other Welles films I like more. Like, I adore Ambersons, even though it's got that, it's been messed with. There's so many films from the 50s I adore. There's Chains of Midnight in the 60s. There's just a lot of really good Welles films, and Welles is individualistic, and he's got disasters as well floating through, but then he's got some great Shakespeare adaptations. You know, as I said, Chains of Midnight, we've also got Othello and Macbeth. He's done some films I think are boring films like The Stranger. You know, so it's not like I adore everything Welles did. There's some stuff there that I think you could have done better. But these are both directors who are they're their own person, and they do films about kings and, you know, the people who are bigger than life in lots of ways, are the size of someone's life is something important to the theme. Either they're someone who's quiet in life or someone who's like a king. So that's why I put them together, because they do seem to be linked. They're 2 different versions, a Western version and an Eastern version on similar subjects. So I'll now pass it on to Ronin.
Well, I'll go on a mini rant now. It does seem that over the last 10, 15 years, Kurosawa's been devalued. He's kind of been seen as, he was the gateway director into world cinema for a lot of people, but somehow he's not actually that good. He's just a gateway, and he's too Western, really, to be a proper Japanese director, which is complete bullshit. I think it's just very trendy to go, it's like Seven Samurai and Seven Seal in top 100 lists. It's just, you put them in because they're foreign, and you just put them in because they're there. But then you realise what great films those 2 films are. For me, he always was the number one. Granted, he was replaced last year in my favourite films list and my favourite directors. But as far as shot composition, dynamic camera, shot composition for me, Kurosawa is still number one. Yes, Kubrick is fantastic. Yes, Orson Welles is fantastic. Yes, Sergio Leone is fantastic in shot composition. But for me, Kurosawa is still number one in shot composition. You can pause any Kurosawa film and stick it in an art gallery. He did lots of different films. Yes, some more successful than others. I do think his batting average is really high. But I also love Orson Welles. When you think about how the studios treated Orson Welles, considering Citizen Kane is literally the only film that they didn't mess with, what he went through, now some of it's his own fault, but what he went through to get budgets and actually put films together, and then to create these great films out of patchworks that were filmed a year apart and 6 months apart in different locations and sticking them together, and they're still some of the greatest films of all time. That is an amazing achievement. He's certainly a better actor than Kurosawa. Again, his shot composition is immaculate. You know, The Trial is just one of the most beautiful films ever made. This is difficult, but I certainly have one slight preference, just based on batting average, apart from anything else, because Orson Welles does have some dips, whereas Kurosawa, for me, his worst film's a 3.
Yeah, I think me and Ronan are going to just basically take each other's out, basically. Okay, SJS.
Yeah, both of these directors are on my favorites list, and I've loved their films for a long time. And I think my ranking for both of their films is quite odd. Like my Wells ranking is like The Trial, Chimes at Midnight, and F for Fake, so no Citizen Kane in the top 3. And for Kurosawa, my favorites are like The Hidden Fortress and Derosu Usala. So it's a really weird ranking, but anyway. I think Orson Welles, again, you could argue that he's the best visual American filmmaker ever, along there with Kubrick. And again, like Ronin said, Kurosawa has great shot composition too, even though I like the 2 other big 3 Japanese directors for their shot composition more. But I've seen all of Kurosawa's work, but I think there are some films there that aren't that good, like the Shanshiro Shugata films or lots of the 40s stuff. So it took him a while to kind of realize his style, but Welles obviously started with a masterpiece, so that's a big difference between them. But there are some Welles films that I haven't seen yet, like Mr. Arkadin, Macbeth, and Immortal Story. So those are supposed to be all good films, so looking forward to watching them. But yeah, I think I have to go with the Japanese director as always when they are against the American directors. So I'm gonna go with Kurosawa, but I love Welles too. Yeah, he's probably like top 3 American directors for me.
Interesting. Not saying you put them in the wrong category, but Welles is almost like an art house director in a lot of ways.
I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that actually too. I forgot.
I know, but the thing is, he had to actually go and work in a. He was never treated as an art house director.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So
I don't think you're wrong, because he did work within the studio system, and actually that was actually his main problem, is that he was an art house director, or somebody who wanted to be an art house director within the studio system, and they were like, these films are just not as appealing as somebody else is making. But he makes a very interesting character within the history of cinema then, because his films will alternately be talked about as somebody that was a great artistic voice and great artist in his own right, and this kind of larger than life character, both on screen and off screen, in a lot of ways. But his films are sort of a bit obtuse in a lot of ways because of that, and I think it sort of adds to their mystique in some ways. Like you talk about Ambersons, I think Ambersons is a great film, but you think about what it could have been. You know, that's what the story that comes with Ambersons, and you go, God, this film's already great, and it could have been something else. For me, Kurosawa was just a better storyteller between the 2 of them. I think across a whole range of ways that he does it, I think his stories just resonate with me more in terms of in terms of what he's trying to do. You can talk about age and dying and that kind of stuff. You can talk about, you know, what is the truth, what is happening, you know, legacy, all of that kind of stuff. And he is in a sort of a period where people are like, oh, sure, everybody likes Kurosawa. But I think it's going to do like a return. I think in another 10 years, we'll get this thing of, do you realize how good he actually was? You know, you look at the longevity of his career. It's absolutely insane, you know, in terms of ways that he reinvented himself or the ways that he came back. I even think Dreams is a magnificent film. Kind of this thing that he threw together at the end of, these are all the things that are still rattling around in my head at this stage. So, yeah. I get to go first, and I'll go Kurosawa.
SJS?
Kurosawa, yeah.
I'm going to go with The Emperor. And remind people you can go and check out my film series on Kurosawa before Rashomon on my channel.
Just like the after Rashomon,
yes, the after Mifune that I've been talking about for 3 years.
That's right.
But I will do it.
Yeah, sure.
Kurosawa.
Yeah, okay. I'm going for Orson Welles. I'll stick up for Orson Welles. But Kurosawa, not a surprise, but I thought they were too good to not put together in a weird way. They just seemed like they were a fitting pair. Yeah, and even these rankings are kind of entertainment and art house. They are kind of vague in a sense. I'm just trying to put them in some way. It's not like it's the most defined.
No, I think he did it right, but it just made for an interesting talking point about Wells himself.
Okay, so now we're back to art house, and it's Ronin's turn. So you've got Stanley Kubrick versus Louis Buñuel. Watch his face go, oh.
Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, as a younger film fan, I adored Kubrick because, again, Kubrick is one of those people that you're told you must adore Kubrick. I think, as I said in my director ranking, he has slipped a bit. He's still in my top 20, but I don't revisit. Well, I revisit certain ones of his films, but I don't revisit his whole catalogue. Well, I've still only seen Eyes Wide Shut twice, I think. Don't shout at me too much.
No,
obviously, shot composition, camera work, groundbreaking technology, being an influence on just about everybody. You know, 2001 is still arguably the best space film ever made, and it was made in 1968, and it still hasn't actually been bettered as far as how space looks. And Kubrick, very much like Orson Welles, is still going to be talked about 100 years from now. Louis Buñuel, very much like Herzog for me, is underrated. I did watch not all of his films, but certainly a large majority of his films a few years ago, and I do need to rewatch them. But things like Exterminating Angel and Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie and a bit of Diana, and they are fantastic. He is subversive, political without being, well, I was going to say about being overtly political, but they probably are overtly political. It's difficult because I think if I had actually rewatched all of Buñuel's films before this, my answer might be different than what it is going to be. But I think you could make the argument that one of these directors is underrated and one of these directors is overrated.
Okay. SJS? Yeah, so this isn't gonna be that fair for me because Kubrick was the director who kind of got me into more serious cinema, so obviously there's lots of nostalgia here. But I have to say that Buñuel, again, I have been really struggling with him at times, but he has kind of slowly been growing for me. And I actually rewatched The Exterminating Angel earlier this week, and now I finally kind of got that film fully, and now it became a favorite on my second watch. So I really love that film. Again, when I first watched it, I was that, oh yeah, fuck the upper class. Gotcha. Yeah. Again, that's sometimes that kind of theme is just, it's so obvious when all of these art house directors are just, fuck the upper class. But now I'm kind of, it's a good theme to explore now that I've gotten older. So yeah. But I've seen like 13 Buñuel films, and they have all been good, although not many of them like have truly blown me away. But again, like I said, as time has gone by, I've started to like them more and more, and I feel like now that I'm planning to rewatch many of them this year, I think many of them will probably become favorites now, and then in maybe a few years, I think I might go with Buñuel instead of Kubrick. But it's really hard to choose anyone against Kubrick at the moment, because there are just so many of his films on my favorites list. And again, The Shining, Paths of Glory, and 2001, they are all in my top 50, and then Barry Lyndon isn't too far behind, and also love Full Metal Jacket, and even like Doctor Strangelove, Eyes Wide Shut are really good films, so it's really hard to go against Kubrick, and he's kind of the perfect example of kind of mixing up that kind of popular accessibility and art house style, and I really appreciate those type of directors that can connect with normal people and also as cinephiles. Again, that's not easy to do, but even though I love Kubrick this much, I sometimes feel like he's maybe slightly overrated because everybody talks about him. And I was reordering my favorite directors list the other day, and he went down a spot, and one of these directors that we are going to talk about soon went up a bit. But yeah, again, both are great directors. I think Buñuel might actually be a better director, but I'm going to go with Kubrick due to nostalgia. Yeah, but I'm going to shut up now.
Okay.
For me, Buñuel is one of my more underseen directors, which is interesting because he's gone up against a director whose film catalogue and the amount of films that he did actually is quite small compared to the amount of time that he was making films. But again, one of them says batting average in that is about as high as you can have, which is probably the reason that Kubrick is so elevated, in terms of film conversation. But the ones that I've seen of Buñuel are this kind of really interesting, like, explorations. This kind of thing, right? I'm going to throw some stuff at you. We're going to see what you make of it, and then you can have a discussion with yourself or with others about what you think about it, what you feel. And I do like filmmakers who make you question and feel and thinking that way. Not to say that Kubrick didn't do that. Obviously, some would say Eyes Wide Shut does that. Some people would say that 2001 does that, But, tough one.
You have to choose yet after I do my thing. So
that's right. That's good. Oh, go.
Right. Okay. Right. This one's the toughest one for me of the whole everything, because these are basically two of my four favorite directors. So it's it's really, this is a struggle, because these are also two directors who I've been massive fans of since I was a teenager. So there's nostalgia and actually, like, intellectually, like, watch the films later on and then see more of the films and see more. But these are two directors who hit me hard as I was younger, and then I watched more of the film and they're never disappointed. So these two really mean a lot to me. So it's like, I put them together because I knew it would be torture for me. So I thought it'd be funny to watch me talk, but I also made sure I was last on the things so I could hear what you said. But Kubrick really is a satirist, but he's not he's called cold, but he's not really. He just looks at humanity the way it is, which is, it can be stupid, it can be cruel, it can be horrific. It's got lots of elements to this, not nice. So he tries to find stories around that and try and, whether science fiction or horror or a war movie, and tries to take what he means of humanity and put it in a story that actually can explore those ideas. Well, Buñuel is much more scattershot in some way. He just actually takes a general idea and does lots of films, and he figures things out, and he throws things away a lot more. But he's got such a clear idea of what's interesting to him, where I think Kubrick had to work at it. Buñuel was actually much more like taking what was there and moving it around from what he felt the situation, and he created masterpieces that way. So he's a very different type of director, and she gets stuff like Belle de Jour, you get Elle, like Archibald de la Cruz, you'd get like Street Chamber Bourgeoisies. You know, you'd get all these hilariously funny films about how crazy we are as human beings, how insane we are. Rich, poor, everybody's nuts in some way. And it's probably kinder to human beings in some way, but it's also more vicious in some ways because he likes people, but he knows how ridiculous we are. So these are two of my all-time favorite directors. So I find it hard to choose now. I'm going to choose one. So I'm going with Buñuel. So
I'm gonna go Kubrick.
Right.
I'm gonna go with Kubrick, even though I kind of want to go with Buñuel, but I'm gonna go with Kubrick. Yeah.
Yeah, very much like Herzog. I'm going to begrudgingly go with Kubrick, but just on the thought that his highs are literally perhaps in the top 10 greatest films of all time, and Buñuel's highs probably aren't. But again, once I rewatch Buñuel again, then that might change. And it's based because I really don't want Kubrick to win this competition, because that would just like validate all these Kubrick is God things, which he's not. Ron Howard is.
Oh,
Rennie Harlin.
you know, I can take you out of this, Ronan. I can take you out of this thing quite easily.
Oh, it's Kubrick. even though he didn't slice an eyeball with a razor blade, but
yeah. I figured that's the way it was going to go, but I just I couldn't resist torturing myself for that one. That was.
If we do this again in 3 years, it might be different.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Buñuel then. So, yeah.
That's 2-2. So it's like, what do we
That's
do when it's a
okay.
tie?
Or no, he voted Kubrick to start with, so we'll allow
Oh,
that.
you mean in 3 years' time you'll go Buñuel?
Yeah, that's what he meant. He said it earlier on as well, so I knew he meant. So now SJS, we've got Jean-Pierre Melville versus Sergio Leone in the entertainment department.
Yeah, this is one of the hardest ones for me.
Yeah.
But I think I'm actually the only one here who has seen every single film from both directors, because nobody else has seen all the Melville films but me.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, like Magnet of Doom, Two Men in Manhattan, and When You Read the Letter or something like that. I don't think anybody has seen those. Yeah. But they are mediocre films, so they aren't really even worth seeing, but I kind of watch them to be a completionist.
Yeah, basically, we're learning to be a director. Films.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you two or you have seen that two like Sword and Sandal Leone films, but they aren't very good. But
giving them a miss.
So I think both directors are fairly consistent throughout most of their careers, but Leone has 2 mediocre films and Melville has maybe 3 or 4. But yeah, both filmmakers, I think I kind of like some of the same things in both filmmakers. So both have beautiful shot composition. So look at a film like Army of Shadows, that beautiful, kind of minimalist, but at the same time it kind of feels like also maximalist, how it has those kind of huge wide shots and everything looks so huge, even though it's kind of minimalist at the same time. And I think, again, Army of Shadows is up there with the best war films of all time and best explorations of paranoia ever. It's such a masterpiece, and I think it's probably might be the best film between these two directors, even though it's really hard when Leone made Once Upon a Time in the West and The Cutie, Bad and the Ugly, which are 2 of my big favorites as well. But yeah, Leone's films are so beautiful as well, and they are so much fun to watch, and I think his films are maybe the most entertaining out of kind of more slower films that are out there, because again, film like Once Upon a Time in the West, it's very slow, and even though they are entertainment, they aren't like hollow either. There are obviously some themes about capitalism and greed and things like that. But The Cutie, Bad and the Ugly, again, that's like top 25 film of all time for me. Like, And I don't even like Clint Eastwood that much, but I love Eli Wallach in it. And I love the scene when he's tracking Eastwood through the desert and Eastwood's skin is burning and everything. That's like one of my favorite scenes of all time. Although I would have wanted the ending to be different, that Blondie gets killed. But anyway. But yeah, both directors are so great. But I think, again, Melville made more of my favorite films. I think there are maybe 4 Melville films on my favorite list. So Le Samurai, Army of Shadows, Le Dulu, and Unflick. But with Leone, there are 2. So Once Upon a Time in the West and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So that kind of makes me want to go with Melville. Yeah.
Okay, Chris.
This one's cruel.
Yeah, I'm trying to make them all cruel. I mean, I'm cruel. I'm an awful person.
Both these directors have films that go into the, you can make 1 or 2 films that are so transcendent that they'll just take everybody else out. In some ways, both have a film in my top 10 films of all time. Both are utterly amazing at creating scenes and atmosphere, and especially in genres that are so widely done. Like, loads of people have done westerns, loads of people have done war films, but Melville and Leone, both in their own right, have created like these perfect little feelings that you were there, or that you feel it. Oh my God, this is so hard. This is so difficult. I knock Leone down for the fact that he only really did mainly, of his big thing, one genre of film? Even when he stepped outside that genre, it was still that genre, if that makes sense. Gangster versus Western. Oh my God. I would be another person that says Army of Shadows is just...
You don't have to choose yet, though. Don't worry. You can wait till we're finished.
No, I know it don't. But...
I know. Just
when you verbalize these things out loud, it kind of sometimes it's cathartic to kind of say, right, that's okay. Gotta do it. Okay, go for it, Peter.
Okay. I find this difficult as well. This one. Basically, they've both made films I adore. The only thing I've really got is I've seen the only films, rewatched them more than I've rewatched Melville films. But then again, Army of Shadows is more brutal than anything that Leone ever could do. It's brutal. It's really something. And Leone was much more a comic book director in a weird way because it was more simplistic, more morality. And even with the more fantastical films that Melville did, there was a more sense of doom to them, that things were going to go wrong. It was like, it's a much more European sensibility of someone who'd been under the resistance and had seen the worst of humanity. Well, Leone was much more cynical, but cheerfully cynical about it. Mm-hmm. Both of them could do amazing compositions. Both of them took pulp to the highest possible level. Really, you can take it because they made pulp art in a lot of ways, which makes it very difficult to choose. So I have no idea if I'm going to choose yet. So I'll pass on to Ronin here.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, this is difficult because it's appalling in actual fact, because Leone has 2 of the films that are in my top 10, including one that's arguably my favourite film of all time. But again, we've got a director who had a small body of work. You've got a director that objectively did have 2 masterpieces. I mean, you could argue, but against a director that has more than 2, who still doesn't have a huge body of work. So I guess it's a kind of fair comparison. But both of them, as Chris said, made genre films, but elevated that genre into something that we would put in a shuttle and send out to space to show intelligent life if they found it, our highest art. Is that hyperbole? It might be. It's different. This is because the number of times I've seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yes, as you say, you perhaps don't rewatch Melville as much as we should. Yeah, this is a heart, brain, being objective discussion with yourself. But am I first to vote? I'm first to vote, isn't I?
You
You're
are.
first to vote.
This worked out
Um,
fantastically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well-
it's almost like I planned this to talk to you more
Yeah.
than any
Yeah.
person.
of course. You're such
mean,
a pal.
What I would say is Melville has some films that I just don't think are very good in it as well. I don't think Les Enfants Terribles is.
Oh, I absolutely hate Les Enfants Terribles. It's terrible.
But does
And
it
he's
take
quite
away?
sexy in the ones that I mentioned. You
Yeah.
actually either, you know.
I wasn't here to direct for half of that one more than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a shock result, and I'm gonna go with Melville.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm going with Melville. I think I'm with Shadows. Just puts more
As
top
much
for
as
me.
it hurts, but I'm gonna go Melville.
Melville for me as well. Yeah, those trifecta of great Melville films in my head are just up there. It's a
So
mover.
SJS.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Melville, but I think if Leone had a bit of a bigger filmography, I might go with him then.
Yeah.
If you've done Stalingrad, the 4-hour cut.
Yes. All right. So
My heart rates went down.
so what's coming next? All right. I'll give you the entertainment one, okay? Because there's an entertainment, there's an art house one left, and the art house one I'm probably better for. So I'll give you the entertainment one, okay? So
Let's
I'm
go
giving you
for it.
Michael Pill versus Howard Hawks.
Oh man, Hawks versus Paul. Well, actually, not that difficult. Actually, as this one turns out, and in fact, I'd be shocked and surprised if this went the other way. Michael Paul with Emmerich Pressburger did again those elevated films. I mean, you talk about a lot of films coming out post-war, etc., about war, a bit like we're talking about Melville and Leone, and yet their films are on a stratosphere above anybody else's. Even the propaganda films that they made during the war are still on a level above. And I would even kind of point out that there's a podcast that's been done on the go in a while that went through one of these people's work film by film, and not the other one anyway. What does that say? Well, Hawks, not to run Hawks down, because Hawks is a vastly underrated director, I think, in a lot of ways. He's made lots of films that people recognize, but people don't know were done by Howard Hawks, if that makes sense. There's a lot of the very popular films that people go, God, love that film. Who directed it? No idea. So in that way, I think Hawks doesn't get the credit that he deserves, for sure. Really entertaining watches, really fun to watch. But like I say, these Paul films are just, if you're looking at top 100 films of all time, somebody told me they had 4 Paul films in their top 100, I'd go, I mean, that would make sense. If somebody told me they had 4 Hawks films, I'd be going, okay, yeah, fair enough. I'd be a bit more curious to find out what they were, but like a body of work, enormous, high quality the whole way along.
Okay. See, this is more difficult for me. One of the reasons why we've done Pill rather than Hawks is because I'm intimidated to talk about Hawks more than anything, because I'm such a big fan of his. So it's kind of difficult. I'll probably get 4 of both from my top 100,
Right.
to be honest. I'm a massive Howard Hawks fan, but he's one of those directors like Buñuel I'm tempted to talk about too much, because I think they're difficult to talk about. This is the other one I made really difficult for myself, because for entertainment directors who work in the industry, these are my 2 favorites. So I put them together. So I made sure I was going to have a difficult time in this one, because Michael Pill made astonishing films with Pressburger. I mean, Colonel Blimp's one of my favorite films of all time, and Matter of Life and Death. You've got Peeping Tom, Paul made himself. You've got The Red Shoes, Tales of Hoffman's another favorite of mine. It's just, and then some of the smaller films like, the one with the bomb disposal expert. What was that one again?
Small Back Room.
Yeah,
Small Back Room. Yeah.
I always forget that title. It's like, so Pill did stunning films. I adore Michael Pill, but Hawks made stunning films too. They were just more modest but they were the best. I mean, if you look at The Big Sleep, you know, the original Thing, the original Scarface are wonderful. You've got like he pretty much perfected the screwball comedy. You know, with you know, it started off with 20th Century, which is a stunning film.
Brilliant film. Yeah.
Then you've got like Bring Up Baby. You know, he did great westerns like Rio Bravo and Red River. He did everything. He's got more range than any other director on this list, I think, of things. He's up there with Kurosawa for range for like doing a lot of different films. And I think that's underrated, the fact that he was less showy. So he's actually Michael Pell was a show-off director. Howard Hawks wasn't. So you have to go by who was the best, actually, because Michael Pell relied on Pressburger to do these amazing scripts. You know, and Hawks was sort of like Hitchcock, where he worked with the writers and got these scripts working. So it's like, for me, I still don't know who I'm going to choose yet, so I'll pass it on to Ronin.
Well, plus Hawks influenced Kurosawa as well.
Yes.
I'll start with Hawks, who is wonderful. I mean, his string of films is one of the best string. He didn't really have a failure until Land of the Pharaohs, which I absolutely love, and is coming out in a Blu-ray soon, which is fantastic news.
Yeah, we should point out, I sent him a message about that, and it was like, he's the only person I know I could send it to, and he'll be like, oh, wow, really?
It's amazing. It's an amazing film. But he made, as you say, perfected some things, and he has made some perfect films. But that being said, for me, this isn't even close. If cinema is a visual medium, and yes, without Pressburger, the films wouldn't still work to the same effect, because the scripts, despite a little bit of aging, the scripts are still on point all these years later. But when you consider what Powell was doing at the time he was doing it, it's as if I'm actually thinking that Pressburger and Powell were actually aliens who came and arrived post-war and just did that, because nobody else was even like really dreaming of doing that kind of thing. And if it is a visual art form, Powell is like head and shoulders above quite a lot of directors. Yes, he made some clunkers, but who doesn't, apart from some of the directors we've mentioned?
Yeah.
Powell's highs, other directors can't even dream of Powell's highs. And I'm not just saying this because Powell is now my favourite director who's replaced Kurosawa. But that, to me, that speaks to how great Powell is when you consider how great Hawks was. The fact that Hawks made perfect films. He made maybe 3 or 4 perfect films. You could argue even more. But Powell, to me, is still like a level above that. So I don't know how I'm going to vote.
Yeah. Okay, SJS.
So this is a pretty easy one for me. Here's the thing, I used to love Howard Hawks a lot, but now my taste has developed in the way that I don't really care for these classic Hollywood films as much as I used to. So I rewatched The Big Sleep and Bring Up Baby in the last week or so. And again, enjoyable films, but again, there's not much more there than the enjoyment, and I want something more. I like ideas, and I love the aesthetic side of film. So when you have these kind of normal looking studio films, it doesn't really do it for me as much. I prefer these painting like films because I like painting. Yeah. So but I also rewatched Black Narcissus by Powell, so that's a painting like film, and it's such a beautiful film. And I think also Powell films have more substance in general. Like you look at The Red Shoes, like that's a quite a deep film, and also it also has the entertainment side to it and the beautiful visual side. So I think Michael Powell films kind of excel in all of the filmmaking departments, but Hawks films excel in the plot and the character, but not in much more. So I like these more complete, more artsy films, but I still do really appreciate Hawks again, I still like those films, but I didn't love them the same way I did a few years ago when I watched them for the first time. So that's just me. I'm an art house snob. So yeah.
So, okay, voting time. SJS,
Powell.
Ronin.
Powell.
I'm going for Hawks.
I'm going for Michael Paul. Unfortunately, I do feel like if Hawks had been against other people, but that's kind of the point. Yeah.
I kind of could go either way, but it was that thing is like, well, I knew Pill was winning, so I'm going to give Hawks a
absolutely
vote because I thought he deserved a vote. He didn't deserve to lose 4-0.
I feel like Hawks gets short shrift there, but he is against
Pill.
That body of films is
I'm being a total bastard with this stuff.
Yeah, because you could argue Hawks has more perfect films than other directors on this list.
Yeah, for sure. But fun to put the two of them together, for sure.
Right. Yeah, there's certain directors you put Hawks against in this list, he probably could win it. But the other ones, probably not. So my last one is Yuzuru Ozu, which I can't pronounce his first name, against Ingmar Bergman. Yeah, because I'm right. So it's my turn to talk. Okay. For me, I'm going to be quick with this one. This is an easy one for me. This is the easiest one I've got, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to win my loans from this one. I'm an Ozu fan. He's my favorite director, I think. He's my pretty much my favorite director at the moment. So for me, I'm going Ozu because he's humanist without being sentimental. He does characters who live a very modest life and a very modest problem, but he does them in such a way that's fascinating to watch. I just think he's just stunning. Even some of the smaller films that don't get any critical reviews are still masterpieces of wonder for human touch and human contact. He's not the most visual director, but just the humanity of him, I think, is just wonderful. Bergman's also brilliant. Bergman's cynical. Bergman looks at all the big questions. Bergman is a stunning director, and he could trash most directors on his list. But against Ozu, we're going from my number 7 director to my number 1 director. And so I'm going to have to go with Ozu, even though I shouldn't yet because I'm not ready to give the list. But I'll pass it on to
your stall out there.
Yeah. Put it to Ronin now.
Again, this is very much like Godard, because of my ignorance, I've only seen 2 Ozu films, both of which are 5-star films. I think I prefer Late Spring to Tokyo Story. I do have a bunch of his films in my backlog, so I will get to them. But again, the stuff that I perceive he talks about isn't stuff that I'm really that interested in, but I will get to see them at some point. So it's fairly one-sided again, but it's just out of my ignorance, basically. SJS.
So this is absolutely brutal for me.
I thought it would be.
Yeah, but I said earlier when I was talking about Kubrick that he went down a place on my favorite directors list. So Ozu is the one who surpassed him. So at the moment, if you look at my letterbox list, Bergman is number 3 and Ozu is number 4. But it could be the other way around too. Like now that I've been sick for the last 10 days, I've been watching lots of Ozu films. I watched 3 that I hadn't seen before, and they all ended up being masterpieces. So I kind of made this battle harder for me by watching those films. And now I think there are like 7 Ozu films on my favorites list and maybe 9 Bergman films. So you can see how much I love both directors. But so with Ozu, I just love absolutely everything about his films. Like I love how his visual style, again, those beautiful low angles and those beautiful still shots, and how he shoots like trains and factories and buildings and small like kitchen things and everything like that. Like it's just so beautiful and calming. These films made me feel so good when I was sick. When you have like awful fever and you watch Ozu films, you feel like you aren't sick anymore because they are so beautiful. And I think Ozu is again my with Lynch, my comfort director, that when I need to feel passionate about film again, I could watch an Ozu film and feel the passion again. And again, I haven't seen a single bad film from him. I think I've now seen 17 films from him, and they all have been like good to masterpieces, and there are like probably almost like a dozen masterpieces there, and I still haven't watched all of them, so there will probably be more. But with Bergman again, both of these directors actually clicked with me instantly. I started with them very early on when I got into world cinema, and they clicked with me very quickly, and they have been with me now for 6 years. And yeah, with Bergman again, films like Persona, Passion of Anna, Virgin Spring, Shame, there are so many different great films. And again, Bergman is clearly the more versatile director. Ozu is, one criticism you could have for Ozu is that he kind of always made pretty much the same film again and again. But if you watch the films, there are these kind of small differences, and like, for example, I watched the film Tokyo Twilight, so that's probably his most darkest film. So there are these differences, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have a consistent style. But one thing I appreciate about Bergman is that he tackled so many different topics, from mental health to war to relationships to marriage. Yeah, but again, this is absolutely brutal for me. I don't know who I'm gonna go with.
Well,
I think
you
it's
let
just
Chris
depend on
talk
the
then
day.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Two of the directors with the most consistent high level of film. Oh,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
so good right across the board. Like I said, Bergman. It's tough because Bergman's a film that I'm almost certain my wife will, or a filmmaker who my wife will hate. You know, if I sat her down, like, she loves a lot of cinema, she'll watch kind of nearly everything. But I think Bergman isn't going to resonate outside of a few films. You know, there's a couple that she'll go that do deal with kind of the aging process and all that kind of stuff. And when Peter was speaking, I was kind of thinking that Bergman versus Ozu. Ozu is somebody that I've definitely appreciated more as I've got older and got more wisdom in my ears, like an awful lot of the thematic stuff that goes on in his films. But for me, it comes down to actually their impact in the world. And actually, if I was to look at who my current favorite filmmakers are at the moment in the world, I don't think Corriere would exist without Ozu's films in quite the same form that they would do. He's like the extension of that world creating in that building. And for that reason, Yasujiro Ozu would be my winner out of these two.
Okay, SJS, your time to choose.
Do I go with Comfort or Darkness?
Darkness.
Yeah. I'm gonna say Bergman. I have to go Bergman.
Oh, this is interesting.
Bergman, one of his most underrated aspects is actually his shot composition.
Yeah, I'm going Ozu. So for a tie, I've no idea what we do with a tie.
Well,
I love Ozu too, so let's go with him.
All right, we're
Don't
going
make
with
this easy. Come on.
No, I think because SGS was so tortured by it, I think we should give him the one, because it was like he was like half and half. I think really more than anything. You want to give him half points.
Seeing you've been ill.
Yeah, and plus it's also Peter's favorite, so he's in control and he's going to make the choice here.
But also, I think it's actually quite healthy to throw at least one master that everyone thought would get beyond this first round. I think it's quite good to do that.
First round, get rid of Bergman. If anybody was watching at this stage still, they're gone.
Yeah, basically, we would have Godard and Bergman first round. I mean, that's pretty brutal. And Leone, and Howard Hawks, and Orson Welles, and Hitchcock, and Herzog. I mean, we have been brutal so far.
What have we done?
Right, so now we're going to the second round, which is going to be art house versus entertainment. So it's not art house versus art house, so it's going to be, in some ways, it should be less painful, but I'm not so sure. Okay, we're going to start with Ronin again. So we've got David Lynch versus Melville.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. Because, I mean, you could say about Lynch films, yes, they're amazing. and stylish, and they're enigmatic. And he is one of the few directors that I think is genuinely driven by a muse, and he doesn't actually know where it's going to take him. But if you're being cynical, you could say, what do his films actually mean as far as examining the human condition? Whereas Melville films are certainly about the human condition, and we're always going to come back to Army of Shadows. I don't know why that's going to be the tiebreaker for the whole competition. Yeah, so you have... Yeah, it is like a clash of two sensibilities. I mean, obviously Melville was about style, and obviously the way he shot. His films have a look, and he has influenced people. And obviously David Lynch has influenced lots of people who have ripped him off, or sorry, been inspired by him. Yeah, this is actually harder than I thought it would be, just by thinking about it. I'll pass it on to SJS.
So you want to fuck the Homecoming Queen? Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, this is so obvious for me. I'm gonna go with Lynch, but again, Lynch I just love the duality in his films between like beauty and horror, good and evil. And like one thing I've kind of paid attention to a lot in my more recent rewatches is how he kind of deconstructs the American dream in his films like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. How you kind of see the underbelly of the American dream, with you see the sexual abuse in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, for example, and stuff like that. I think that's very interesting. But there's so much beauty in his films. Like, again, just look at how the characters are put in the shots in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, like when Donna and Laura are talking to each other about James, for example, how they're put in the shot. Like, I absolutely adore that. And I think the moments of horror are so horrific because we see so much beauty in his films too. And of course, his films have like the best soundtracks ever. Like Julie Cruz is unbeatable, and Badalamenti is so good, and his films are so funny too, even though there are those moments of horror, but even some of the moments of horror are so funny, like the scenes in Blue Velvet, for example. I'll send you a love letter straight from my heart, fucker. You know what a love letter is. It's a bullet from a fucking gun, fucker. If you ever receive a love letter from me, you're fucked forever. Yeah, but I'll give it to Chris now.
You've joined the live reading of the Blue Velvet script.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, yep, this could go on for a while.
Oh dear.
Chris?
You came prepared, SJS. This is where I can get off the David Lynch train, though. This one actually is quite straightforward for me. As much as I enjoy and appreciate and do all those things, I've got Alan Delon against Kyle MacLachlan. I have Belmondo against Jack Nance in a lot of cases. I just those couple of Melville films, even if excluded, I was thinking when Ronan was talking there about, right, okay, if I take Army of Shadows out, and if I take Army of Shadows out and I'll take Mulholland Drive out, say for instance, what am I left with? And I still go to Le Cercle Rouge or Le Samurai, and then I'm against Lost Highway, which I like a lot, and Blue Velvet, which I like a lot. Just Melville is just a tick higher for me on all of those, just for my own personal tastes.
Okay, it's kind of funny for me this time, right? Is because I've chose Herzog first time round, but this one I'm going for Lynch because, despite the fact that, to be honest, of those four, I think Herzog would have won for me. Of like, if we went Melville, Leone, Lynch, or Herzog, Herzog would win. But I like Lynch more than I like Melville. Slightly. It's just so slightly, but it is slight. It's just like Lynch with the Twin Peaks stuff, the turn and Fire Walk with Me is wonderful. Lost Highway. There's just a darkness to Lynch. There's just some of the stuff's just wonderful. Mulholland Drive. It's just like a waking nightmare, but it's not quite. It's horrific, but it's also charming. He's at a balance. I don't think Melville's more one note, even though it really works for something like Arm of Shadows, where it's just like non-stop. And it's still it works really well for him. But I think Lynch alternates a lot more, even though he seems to have less range for the material he's doing. He does a lot more within it, I think, than Melville does. I'm going for Lynch. I just think Lynch is it's slightly more distinct, but it's very close because I love Melville too. So that's my choice. I'm going for Lynch. Chris,
I'm going Melville.
Lynch.
SJS,
Lynch.
Look at the pain in his face.
Lynch is higher on my rankings, but I'm going to go with Melville.
Right. So
It's
we'll
another
have
tie.
we'll have a tie. You know what's going to happen with tie? It's a head
You
or tails
toss a
thing.
coin.
Yeah, let's toss a coin.
Lynch has to
It
win
is-
the whole thing.
I don't think we're actually anyone's going to change this one. So head or tails. So we'll see Lynch's heads and Melville's tails.
That worked for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's tails.
I was going to say tails never fails. I was quite happy with the Melville.
Yeah, it's tails. Okay, so
SJS
Melville
will
won.
disconnect.
I'll leave
And
this.
we're done.
I'll leave this coin here in case we go. This happens
The rest of the way.
Yeah, no, because we're now well into the. So far, I've lost Benwell. SGS has lost Lynch. So there's some heartbreaks now starting to happen now.
And everybody's dead from here on out.
Yeah, pretty much. So we can't kill anybody with shock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, SGS, we've got Stanley Kubrick versus Michael Pell for you.
Yeah, this is easy for me. Again, due to the nostalgia and stuff. And again, there are way more Kubrick films on my favorites list than Powell films. But I think in the end, there are some, like, again, both of them are master visual filmmakers. Kubrick films are a bit darker. I think they have more thematic substance. They are funnier because they are, again, films like The Shining, Clockwork Orange, I think are hilarious. And yeah, I don't know what to say. Again, for me, it's very obvious. So yeah.
Chris?
Paul versus this overwhelming cinematic body of work that is Kubrick. I thought when you initially said this, I thought, God, this was dead easy. I'm going to go Paul. And then you start to battle it out, tick films off against one another and kind of go ahead. I think it still is going to be Paul because I come back to things like The Red Shoes, a film that I went in thinking, I am going to hate this. Oh my God, how long is this movie? About this thematic and this setting. And honestly, it wasn't long enough. Yeah, I'm going to go Paul.
Yeah, I'm Paul as well, to be honest. It's like I'm a massive Kubrick fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Powell is one of those directors that was low to start on my list, but has been itching up to my top list for a long time, and now it's like he's actually now hitting alongside Kubrick now. When SJ's talking about how Ozo overtook Kubrick, Powell's kind of doing that for me at the moment because I think because it's the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp's the one that puts it over the top for me. But then again, if you ask me tomorrow, it might be Kubrick. But it depends on the day. But it's like, I just think the warmth of the Artus films puts them further above for me slightly than Kubrick's more cynical version. But you're catching me probably a day where I'm much more into humanity than I am some other days. So it's like, but it's really hard. But I think Powell's kind of the Tales of Hoffman, Red Shoes, things like that. It just there's something about them that I just adore. I adore like 2001 in Barry Lyndon as well. for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that end of 2001 is wonderful, but it's like it's hard. Anyway, so I'll pass it on to Ronan.
This one isn't close. 20 years ago, it probably would have been different, but currently, it's not close for me. So am I the voter?
You
First
the
vote?
voter.
Yes.
It's Powell. Spy in Black, he makes you root for the Germans.
I'm Pill 2.
I'm Paul 3.
I'm Kubrick, but I don't mind Pavel winning it because I love his work too. So.
Yeah, it's like that's the point where you're actually going against people. Like it's great versus great. It's like it's a minute degree for me. Powell and Kubrick is such a minute degree. Let's like said on the day type of thing. So it's kind of harder to differentiate now. Okay, now we're going for Bresson versus Kurosawa. Because I've just got it tabled. I'm going to opposite sides really, so it's just easier. Number 3's Bresson versus Kurosawa. So this is
start. I
yeah,
think.
you start.
Yep, it is me start. So Kurosawa versus Bresson. Fairly easy for me. Kurosawa is going to win out, even though both make beautiful movies, both make really interesting movies. Bresson's being probably a little more introspective for me in terms of storytelling. But Kurosawa's body of work wins out for me.
Yeah, for me, this is easy too. For me, it's Bresson. I just think Bresson's a real genuine artist. And Kurosawa's very good, but I think Bresson is like pretty much above and beyond for me in a way that Kurosawa maybe isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's easily Bresson. So pass it on to Ronan.
It's Kurosawa. Not by as much as again it would be like 10 years ago. I guess it's that art house versus entertainment. Again, people are critical of Kurosawa because he's more entertaining and he's more westernized. So I guess it comes down to taste. They're both masters, but for me, it's Kurosawa.
Again, I love both of them. They are both in my top 20 directors of all time, but I think Bresson he transcends cinema. I think he's one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, not just the greatest filmmakers, but artists. His films they are so beautiful, so incredible. They stimulate the brain like no other films do. So, but again, Kurosawa, even though he's an entertainment director, we need to remember that there's lots of depth in his films too. Like last night I was watching some Aki Kaurismäki interviews in YouTube because they're so hilarious, but he was talking in one of them how people often forget how political Kurosawa's films are and how much depth are in them, and maybe he's sometimes underrated compared to Mizoguchi and Ozu, because Kurosawa films have that level of depth too, even though they on the surface seem like just entertainment films. But I have to go with Bresson again. He's just risen through the ranks in my list in the recent years, and now he's in the top 10, and I think he might be in the top 5 eventually. So
yeah. So it's flip a coin time again.
Yep.
Let's get the coin going.
So heads is the Bresson, tails is Kurosawa. This is I was hoping we'd never come to this, but I know it has to come to this.
It seems like a design flaw in the 4.
Should have got a 5th person.
Right. Heads this time. Heads.
Nobody believes him.
That's outrageous. It's a double-headed coin.
No, it's not. Look, tails. Heads.
That's a head. They just turned around. It was a head.
So Bresson wins by the most dubious smash. Yeah.
I can't wait to watch this back and blow that up.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm actually being honest this time. The first time I lost was Lynch vs. Melville.
No,
my choice lost, so I'm being fair.
Yeah.
If I can't make fun of it,
Yeah. Right. So now it's Ozu versus Fritz Lang. So my choice is Ozu. Obviously, it's my number 1 director, so I'm going Ozu. I don't think so much as the humanity of him. Fritz Lang's the most cynical director ever, and he's wonderful. He's one of my favourites, but Ozu kind of wins out for me in this one. So I'll pass it on to Ronin.
It's Fritz Lang, but again, just due to ignorance of Ozu. As I said before, both Ozu films that I've seen are 5-star films, but I've just seen more Fritz Lang. So again, in a couple of years, that will probably change, and I might be fairly confident that it will change. But for the moment, it's Fritz Lang.
Yeah, for me, it's easily Ozu. It's peak cinema. Ozu's best films are peak cinema, so there's no question that it's Ozu for me.
I actually don't mind either way on this one, which probably seals the deal. I probably would lean towards Fritz Lang, but I really don't mind. So I'll actually to break the tie in this case and stop Peter's cheating.
Oh,
I'll go Ozu.
right, what a bastard.
Yeah, that wasn't contested, so that's fine. There's no hard feelings in that one.
Right. I'm pretty. What the hell? It's not letting me underline it. Right.
Yeah.
Come on.
Get the Tombola rolling again. And the semi-finals. It's like Eurovision all over again. It's brilliant. We got the finish jury.
Right. So it's 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4 for the director. So 1 versus 2 is Melville versus Michael Powell. So it's Ronin has to start this time.
Michael Powell.
This is
As many, Melville is great and has made great films, and that's what's got him through to this level. But Powell has made more great films for me, anyway.
Yeah, this is really hard. I don't actually remember which way I put them in my letterbox list. I think they're probably into the 25 to 35 range, both of them. But who I'm feeling today? I mean, I think there are more Melville films in my favorites list, so I guess I'm gonna go with Melville, even though Powell might be the better director. But...
This feels a bit like the underdog stories. I can't believe Melville and Paul made it the semi-final, and one of them's going to get to the final.
Look what happened last time, though.
Yeah.
It is. I'm going to go Michael
Aaron.
Paul.
Yeah.
Michael Paul.
And Michael Powell as well, to be honest. Is like to me, it wasn't even a choice. This one is like Powell's. Melville was amazing.
Yeah, I really have to check my letterbox list.
Yeah, Powell's like.
I cannot survive without my letterbox list. So.
Like I think Melville was in top 20 and Powell's in the top 10 for me. Really, that's why it's kind of simple. I'm actually amazed Melville got as far as beyond the first round. I'm stunned that he got beyond the first round. So it's.
I mean, nobody be more. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, in my list, Melville is 28 and Powell is 31. So
there you go. I was going to say there'd be nobody more amazed at this outcome than Jean-Pierre Melville himself, that he made it semi-final of this.
He'll be cheering in the streets of France.
Yeah, Powell versus. So the other one we have is 3 and 4. So give me a second here. We've got Robert Bresson versus Ozu, which I'm amazed those two got there as well. I thought they'd both be going by now. I thought Ozu would lose the first round.
We're so hip.
Yeah. Ozu was the one I was thinking, like, when we started, it was like, okay, he's my favourite, but he's getting trashed round 1, Vince Bergman. There's no way he's surviving Vince Bergman. Okay, so it's Chrissy's.
Oh, it's my go. Well, I have a feeling we're going to need the coin again, but I'm going Ozu.
Yeah, I'm going Ozu as well, to be honest. It's like Ozu is like, no matter how much I love Bresson, Ozu still kind of wins out for me. It's just like the decency of his films and the humanity of them kind of wins out, even though Bresson is one of the great artists. So it's difficult. Right, Ronin.
Even with my ignorance, my perception of what Ozu is, I think Bresson would win even if I had seen all of Ozu's films, just because thematically Bresson tackles different things in my perception of Ozu, obviously, because I still haven't seen enough of his films. So Bresson for me.
Yeah, this is brutal, two of my top 10 directors. So But I've actually been thinking a lot lately, like who is the number one greatest filmmaker of all time? I mean, it's a stupid question, but I often think that it's either Bergman or Bresson. But again, Ozu, he's a comfort director for me, so I've got to go with Ozu. So no coin flip needed. Yeah.
Oh, so this is so we now have people that I never thought would get near the top to do this.
This is insane.
We're really good at not throwing out the big people and just keeping to the people you don't expect, don't we? So the final was actually
We should have done the sealed envelope. Actor or directors we thought would never make it into the final, sealed envelope, and then I'll open it right now and probably have.
Well, basically Ozu was the one I thought was guaranteed to lose in the first round. It's like I'd have placed money on Ozu going out in the first round, to be honest.
I actually thought that Lynch would be in the final because I know that me, Ronin, and Nazarin are big Lynch fans, but no.
Yeah, but you're thrown out by a coin toss. I could have cheated. I could have cheated.
Ah, you see,
like you did the other thing.
Yeah.
But I'm actually happy with this final. I'm really glad to see Ozu here.
Yeah. So the
I'm
final,
not, because it means the director who's going to win is the director I've only seen 2 films of.
that makes it
Shame on
funnier.
you.
That makes it funnier.
I'm
Okay,
not
it's
sure
Films,
that's
films
gonna happen.
about families shouldn't be the greatest films of all time. I'm sorry.
Solitary Ronin in a rant against family
Yes,
films.
absolutely.
and a rant against this competition on his channel.
Against my own
that's-
ignorance.
Right.
But I mean, there's so much more there than just families. Like there's the
It's just
modernity
my
versus
perception of
tradition
it.
and
Yeah.
There's fart jokes,
Right,
bourgeoisie,
Oh, you've convinced me
alienation is
now.
there and lots of
right.
different
So
things.
for me, this final, I'm the first one. This is a problem because one of my favorite directors is one of my favorite directors. So okay, I pretty much said Ozu is my favorite director. So I have to go with Ozu because there's even though Michael Powell's number 5, so it's like 1 versus 5, and honestly, my top 10 is kind of so minutely similar of levels of directors. It's kind of hard to separate, but I've been pro Ozu the whole way, so I have to go with Ozu. Even though I'm torn as hell because I adore Michael Powell.
Well, it's my number 1 director against somebody I've seen 2 films of, so it's Michael Powell.
Well, I think again Ozu films are way deeper than Powell films, and again many people might say that Powell films look better, but I actually think that Ozu films are some of the best looking films ever. I absolutely love his style. Yeah, it's like a style made for me because I love that calm, still shot painting like style more than anything else. So I'm gonna go with Ozu, but again, Powell is one of my favorites. So yeah.
Only your 31st favourite.
And just to round it off, and in perfect style, I'm going to go definitely Michael Powell.
Right.
I thought you'd go Ozu.
No.
Right. I have a suggestion here, right? They both win. We don't toss a coin for this. We just say these are the winners, Powell and Ozu. That'd be a better choice.
You open it out to the comments and get the people who are watching the final vote.
Nah, sod them.
All right, okay.
That's a way to cheat your audience.
Yeah. No, but I think it's probably better than trying to, like, we've had a genuine draw. Rather than saying one's better, I'll just say they both won. It's a draw.
Yeah.
Art is not a competition. Yeah.
Yeah, in this time of war, this is a peaceful way to settle it.
I mean, in total keeping
Everybody
with the setup of a death match, we're going to have a draw.
Yeah, I think that makes it even better. It's like pretty much it's a death match until the finale, and then we say, can we give peace a chance?
We're just all anti-war. As it turns
Yes.
out, at the heart of it, we're anti-war.
The whole thing was a setup just to meet in the middle of the trenches and give each other a hug.
Yeah, this is a football game in Christmas Day, World War One. That's what it is.
Paul McCartney to the fore. There we go.
But let's be honest, if you were one of the 16, you're all winners.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Rennie Harlin transcends the least, by the way.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
we did say in the event of a tie, we would use Tarkovsky. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this is where Tarkovsky comes in and beats everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. Huge
Solaris-like
catalogue.
moment.
If you want a definite winner, I can change my vote. If you want a definite winner,
No,
I
you have
like
to go
it.
with
yeah,
the democracy,
yeah. So it's a
And-
draw.
cheated coin flips.
Yep. So
it's a draw.
Michael Powell and Ozu are both the winners.
Amazing.
I'm still amazed Ozo got to be in the first round. I'm shocked that he actually.
Well,
It's
Battle
like
Video won the boutique battle, so
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
right.
it's like literally, it was like him and Herzog, the two. I thought there's no way in hell they're getting beyond round one. It was like, I honestly, Fritz Lang as well got way further than I expected. I thought he would get trashed. Like, I thought basically me and Ronin would vote against Hitchcock, but then we would have a draw and I'd have to switch just to keep the peace or something.
just out of interest, who would have been the toughest matchup for Tarkovsky?
I have no clue. Like, I'm trying to look and see who we've got.
Bergman?
Probably.
I'm trying to think of somebody that wasn't on the list. You know, so you can set up episode 2.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just like Sight and
Tarkovsky's a big one.
Sound, Shizlovsky and Kobayashi weren't there.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
Oh, Christopher Nolan versus Tarkovsky, because they're both similar.
Fellini, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm the only one here who loves Fellini. So yeah.
I quite like him. It's just I'm not.
I like
I'm not
Fellini.
like, it's not like it's just,
Antonioni.
I'll tell you what, he might be.
I like Antonioni a lot.
He probably might. He probably beats Tarkovsky for me. Fellini.
Yeah, I like Fellini a bit more too.
Two Fellinis.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing, if you missed Tarkovsky's, if you missed his presence, go watch my videos on Tarkovsky. I've got tons of them on my channel. Nazarinprod. There's a whole section. There's only 2 left to do. I've done all of them, including one of the violin. Like I've done.
Or
Quite a lot.
should we let Chris Stockman decide like last time?
Why haven't you burned that book?
What does he say about Ozu?
Yeah.
Well, The Last Samurai is the Japanese film. Yes.
What would have been a great head-to-head would have been Roman Polanski against Woody Allen.
Oh. Polanski would win for me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I've
But
still
objectively,
felt
nobody
that-
wins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all lose.
So who did everyone think was going to win from the list I sent you?
I thought Lynch would win.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Lynch or Kubrick?
Yeah, and basically they both made it through the first round.
Both
and then
English language directors.
Yeah, I just think it's hilarious. Lynch lost by a coin toss. So did Kurosawa. It's just like
It turns out we're 4 winners.
Yes.
the good thing is the 2 that won actually won without a coin toss. They didn't have any coin toss ones. Those 2 actually get through. So.
Oh, you consider for the bulk of his career, Michael Powell was underrated or not understood. So
Yeah,
And again,
wasn't that big in
Yeah.
Japan. He was like just thought he does makes regional films. It's like he's not really a big director, so he wasn't like so he was probably even less respected than Powell in lots of ways.
and again, the one person that wasn't included, Scorsese, helped get Powell more recognition.
true.
So
Yeah, for once we did a podcast where we don't talk about Scorsese. So
Until
Well,
right
that was
now.
kind of intentional. I did not want to go through that.
let's
I
talk
was
about
like-
The Departed again. So. It's
Yeah,
our
I know
favorite
how to
pastime.
avoid a rant. Okay, I know certain rant points, certain people that I know I wanted to avoid. So
Gangs of New York.
oh,
yeah,
He
he
can't
wouldn't have
help
stood
himself,
up
can
against
he?
anybody.
Yep. So I think that was good fun. I think we tortured each other quite a bit, and
Yeah, some good matchups
yeah.
or bad, depending how you look at them.
Well, good for torture. That was my intention. Like there were certain ones I thought, okay, this tortures me. Like I had this section where all the choices would torture me, and I managed to torture a few other people in the way as well, which I felt pretty good about.
Although one thing I will say about the final draw is that I think Michael Powell should win because with Ozu you have to read subtitles. So. Yeah.
Oh my god!
You can't be expected to watch and read at the same time.
Oh, someone's going to take you seriously. That's
I
the
think.
worst part.
I mean, look at the background, so I think they will realize.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So that's us then. That's us done the deathmatch.
Thank you very
And we
much.
couldn't even have a final winner. We did 2 hours. We
After
didn't
all
even
that.
yeah. Which actually pleases me is actually 5 didn't even have a
Yeah.
winner after all that. It seems
We've
actually
subverted
funnier.
the genre. Well done.
Yep. We're satirists of a kind.
Oh dear.
Right. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed our insanity, our weird thoughts.
Deliberations.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm still so happy that Ozu part of 1, even though Ron's only seen 2 of the films. That just makes my day. That's just like,
Yeah, I've got homework. So
yes, that's perfect.
You will
It's the
clear
perfect
your
absurdity.
backlog in 10 years and 251
Yeah.
days. So.
Yeah.
maybe we should do an Ozu series and Ronin Nazarin talks, and that will get me to watch them.
You may have to. That's how we did Lubitsch to get me to watch Lubitsch. And I adore Lubitsch now.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was just an excuse for me to watch films to actually get me motivated.
Yeah, because actually announcing series means that we all finish those series. That's exactly how that always works.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're talking through the Bergman box set. We're actually motivating ourselves to go through it. It's like, I think the thing that slowed us down was I suggested watch Scenes from a Marriage, and we've been putting it off for a while. It's like I want to watch it, but I'm still also kind of scared of it. It's like we won't get to it. So it's
Yeah,
my
it's one of
fault
his
for
best
that
films,
series
so.
been slowed down. I
Yeah.
mentioned Scenes from a Marriage that kind of just
That's the Bergman film I always reach for.
yeah. All right, thank you everyone for watching,
Thank you.
and we've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So,
Bye.
Take care.
bye.
Bye.
We're still waiting for